News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. Tensions between the U.S. and Iran have escalated. President Trump says as far as he's concerned, the ceasefire is over.
And so we hit him very hard last night. Very, very hard. Probably hit him hard again tonight. I'll give him a little warning. We're going to hit him hard tonight.
Trump indicated the U.S. might take over Karg Island, noting that he asked the military to avoid striking the oil pipelines in last night's attacks. And he said the U.S. may reimpose a blockade at the Strait of Hormuz, applicable only to Iran. Iran's press TV cites an unnamed source saying that Iran will close the strait if the U.S. strikes. Oil prices have surged more than 7% after President Trump said the interim agreement with Iran is over. Crude prices had declined recently from spikes well over $100 a barrel to around the levels they were at before the war with Iran began. At this hour, WTI is more than $75 a barrel and Brent crude is nearly $80 a barrel. President Trump says he will allow Ukraine to manufacture Patriot missile interceptors, sending another signal of his shifting approach toward Russia's war.
We'll give them the right to make Patriots. We'll show them how to do it. It's very complex, actually, but you'll figure out the complexity quickly.
Trump said U.S. manufacturers would go to Ukraine to explain the process. Ukraine needs additional Patriot missiles to defend itself as Russia's assault continues, and Trump's decision would be a major win for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump also says he'll remove Syria from the terrorism sanctions list. He made that comment as he met with the country's president, Ahmed al-Shara, on the sidelines of the NATO summit. Trump's efforts to help bolster al-Shara have drawn alarm from Israel. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte announced NATO allies would spend $27 billion to upgrade its fuel supply lines.
Allies are taking a historic step to enhance NATO's fuel supply chain, to ensure our forces have the energy supplies they need for war-fighting readiness.
Rutte made the comments during a closing press conference at the NATO summit in Turkey. Tensions between the U.S. and Iran moving stocks lower. We check those markets for you all day long. Here at Bloomberg, the S&P 500 down 0.75%, NASDAQ down 0.75%. The Dow is down 1.4%, and the 10-year Treasury yield at 4.58%. The 2-year yield at 4.22%. The Russell 2000 index is down 1.5%, and the SOX index, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange semiconductor sector, is little changed. Intel, though, saw the biggest drop of nearly 5%. Apple says its expanded agreement with Broadcom is expected to top $30 billion. The deal will involve manufacturing more than 15 billion chips in the U.S., supporting hundreds of jobs. The iPhone maker will also help Broadcom upgrade its production facilities in Colorado. More on this now with Bloomberg's Anurag Rana.
I think the big question is more, I would say, positive from Broadcom's point of view, because, there has been that discussion that Apple's insourcing some of the components that they currently buy from Broadcom.
Bloomberg's Anurag Rana. China reportedly plans to allow some of its biggest AI companies to buy a small number of Nvidia's H200 chips. Sources tell the information that Chinese officials have told companies, including Alibaba, ByteDance, and DeepSeek, that they may soon receive permission to buy some of those chips, but they have to explain how many they need and why they need them. Bank of America handed a $520 million credit line to OpenAI in recent weeks after turning them down at first. The deal is a change in how the bank approaches money-losing AI startups, with OpenAI's preparations for an IPO influencing the financial firm's decision. New York City officials began reopening streets and allowing people back into nearby buildings after crews stabilized a compromised section of a Midtown Manhattan high-rise. Sources tell Bloomberg the building is no longer at risk of collapse. That investigation continues. Maine's Democratic Party urged Graham Plattner to immediately withdraw from the U.S. Senate race after those allegations of sexual assault. The party says Plattner would have no role in selecting his replacement, accusing his campaign of trying to influence that process. Plattner's team refutes that. They say they only wanted to understand the process to ensure voters and volunteers make the decision and not the political establishment. Emmy nominations are out. The Pitt leads all nominees with 25 in a dominant sophomore season. Hacks led all comedies with 24 for its final season. The Emmys are scheduled for September 14th on NBC. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.